Okay, so let's see how we can use the terrain blanket shaders to conform meshes to terrain surfaces. And this demo scene is included in the TV blanket shaders module in the demo folder, and you can check these demo routes. And in this scene, we have some objects that are conforming to the terrain surface. And if I move this terrain around, all those meshes are nicely following the terrain surface. So this is super useful when you have bigger patches of grass. For instance, if I select this grass, you can see that this is quite a big patch of grass, and we cannot really use this kind of grass with terrains that have elevation, so only on flat surfaces. So with the blanket shaders, we can conform the meshes nicely on the terrain surface. Okay, so I will hide these objects over here and show you for each of these meshes how to use the blanket shader and the conform feature to conform the meshes to the terrain surface. Okay, so let's start. I will hide this nature game object over here, and I have these individual meshes over here right now. And what I will do, the conform feature is driven by elements. So if we look under this terrain over here, we have an element which is a form surface element. This element is used to send the height and the normal of the terrain to the meshes globally, and those meshes then are using that height and the normal for the conforming. And there are some additional settings in the blanket shader to align the meshes to the surface normals, or to transfer the terrain normal to the meshes, and I will show you all of them in a moment. What I will do right now is to delete this element and start from the beginning with everything. Okay, since the element is removed, the conforming is happening at the y position 0, so everything is just conforming to the ground at the moment. Okay, and for these meshes, I will open the material manager, and I created this custom preset to reset the blanket shaders, and we will start from the beginning with everything. Okay, so let's start with this grass. I will hide the other objects, and let's start with this grass. So I have this big patch of grass. It is using the general subsurface lit shader, and what I will do, I will simply we can go to the shader selection panel and go to the visual engine, geometry, and choose the blanket subsurface lit shader. Or alternatively, what we can do is to choose from a preset over here. If you go to the shaders, you can simply switch to the blanket shaders over here. And right now, as you can see, this shader is switched from the general subsurface lit shader to the blanket subsurface lit shader. But nothing is happening at the moment, because if we go to the conform feature over here, so we have the conform setting over here. The conform is enabled, but it is not conforming to the terrain surface because we don't have the height of the terrain. So in order to send that height globally to the shaders, select the terrain, right click, go to boxophobic, TV, and create a new element. And by default, when you select a terrain and create an element, the new element will be a form subsurface terrain element. So this is sending the height of the terrain globally. And at the moment, if you go to the conform and enable the conform feature, this was enabled by default because when I reset that, when I reset the blanket feature, I only reset the shader actually. So the for your shader, you will need to enable the conform feature, and now the mesh is conforming to the terrain surface. Okay, if you go to the global settings, you will see that actually if you go to the conform settings, over here it says that the conform position feature requires elements to work, and it is using the form surface or form height elements. In this case, I'm using the form surface, which is sending the height and the normal as well. Okay, so if I'm going to the global settings, under the form, actually we have the global form pivot slider, and this is telling the shader how the elements are sampled. If the global form pivot is set to 1, the conforming is happening at the pivot position of this mesh. But the grass is having pre-baked pivots over here. So if you look at the object pivots mode, it is set to baked. If I set and with baked pivots, each of these individual quad from this mesh is having an individual pivot over there, and the sampling, since it is happening per pivots, each of these quad is conforming properly on the terrain. If I set these pivots to single and we have these form pivots set to 1, this mesh is now conforming on a single point, and if I move this around, you will see that it is still conforming to the terrain, but using that single pivot of the mesh. Okay, so I will set back the pivots to baked, and you don't really need to worry about this one, because when you convert grass meshes with TV, it will always bake those pivots, and this will work if we set this global form pivots to 1. But we can also sample this the height in world position, and for grass it will still work, but we will see when we get to the rocks, changing this slider matters a lot. Okay, so I will keep it to 1, go back to conform, I will search for it, and with the conform we have 2 modes we can use. Right now the position of this conforming is locked, so it doesn't matter if I move the object on the y-axis, the mesh is still conforming. It is conforming to the terrain surface, and it is locked. What we can do, you can set it to freeform object position, and right now I can move this mesh around. This is more useful for rocks, and we will see that in a moment. We can also offset this, because when you paint grass with the terrain tool, for instance, you cannot move this object around. So in some cases you might want to offset this position to avoid clipping of the grass with the terrain. Okay, and finally we will have some conform mask, and we can use the vertex color to specify what part of the mesh should be should conform to the terrain and what not. Okay, so I will set this one to 0.1, log the position, maybe 0.1, not 0.01. Okay, and now we have this mesh nicely conforming to the terrain. Okay, the blanket shader is not only having this conform, but we have another feature which is called the rotation. And now, right now, the rotation intensity is set to 1. This is used to align the objects to the terrain surface. But this feature, if I set it to 1, it is not really working. That's because my terrain is not instanced, and with the form surface element, you will notice that this element normal is not set over here, because if the terrain is not instanced, the terrain normal is not available. So we will need to set this terrain to instance, to be drawn as instanced. And once this is instanced, if I go to the element, you will notice that the element normal now is set. So we can use the terrain normal to align meshes to the terrain surface. And if I go to the slider, you will see that the grass quads are nicely aligning to the terrain surface. And the third feature we can use with the blanket shader, as I said, actually I'm not sure if I said it, but there are 4 main features you can use with the terrain, with the blanket shaders, and that's the conform, the rotation used for aligning, transferring the terrain normal to the meshes, or blending objects with the terrain, but I will not talk about that in this video because that deserves a new video. Okay, so the third option we can use is to transfer the normals from the terrain to the meshes, and it is called this transfer feature. And if I enable the transfer feature, the normal from the terrain is transferred to this mesh. This is more useful when blending the terrain with the meshes, to transfer the terrain normal to the meshes, so that blending is almost seamless. Another use case for this is when working with stylized grass, you can use this transfer feature to blend perfectly the grass with the terrain, and so the grass has the same shading as the terrain. All right, next one is this blanket rock. Again, I will switch this one to the blanket shader. So I will switch to blanket standard lit shader and actually enable it. And this is also using the conform feature. And you can see how this mesh is nicely conforming to the terrain. But if I go to the global settings, you will see that this form pivots is set to 0. That's because this mesh is not having any baked pivots, because this is a if those rocks were individual rocks, we could have pre-baked pivots for each of the rock, but this is not possible for this mesh, so it is set to a single pivot mesh. And we need to have this form pivot set to 0, because if I set it to 1, the entire mesh is conforming to the terrain surface. So we need to set these pivots to 0, so the conforming is happening in word space. Okay, we have this other mesh over here, these sticks, and for these sticks this is set to general standard lit at the moment. Again, I will switch to the blanket shader and enable the conforming. Actually, the conforming is enabled, but you will notice that this conforming is not really working. Let's see what's happening. If you go to the object transform, you will see that the rotation is set to minus 90. That means that this object, instead of being exported to have the y-axis pointing up, the z-axis is pointing up. So this is a z-up mesh, and Blender and 3ds Max and some other softwares are exporting the meshes with z-up, and starting from TV 21.2 you can set this coordinate system to be y-up or z-up, and if I set this to be z-up, now the mesh is conforming properly, and again we can move it or we can offset it, because right now it is a bit clipping through the terrain. We can go to the conform and set a bit of offset. Okay, or as I said previously, you can use this freeform object position, preset this offset, and move the mesh around manually on the y-axis, and in this case on the z-axis if you are in local space, or on the z-axis if your transform is global over here. Okay, and the last one will be the this tree with these roots. So I created this tree with tree and I made those roots specially to be parallel with the ground, so I can use the conform feature with this mesh. Okay, and this is quite unusable if the terrain has any elevation. It is quite unusable, but again we can use it with the blanket shader. Okay, so I will use the material manager to assign the blanket shader, because this tree is made up of two meshes, and each of these mesh is using a separate material. So this is the leaves material and this is the bark material. So I will use the material manager to assign the blanket shader for both of this material. Okay, so I will go to preset shaders and switch to blanket shaders. All right, and what I did for this mesh, instead of let me search for conform. So the conform is enabled and everything is conforming to the height. And if you look at the branches, everything looks broken because everything is actually conforming over here. And what I want to do is to limit this conforming only for the roots and not for the entire mesh. So I have this conform mesh mask. I will set it to 1, and I think my leaves are not using the blanket mesh, and most likely my preset is a bit broken, but it doesn't really matter. Actually it is. So both are using the blanket. This is standard lit and this is the subsurface lit, so everything is correct. Okay, so once again, conform is enabled. I'm using this mesh mask, which is set to vertex alpha, and you can visualize this mask by going to window, box of Obic, the visual engine. You can go to scene debugger, and over here we have the material features, and you can go to the okay, I don't have it in this case, but we will improvise then. So this vertex alpha is a mask which starts with black at the bottom and ends with white at the top. In my case, what I want to do is to use this mask inverted, because I only want the roots to use the conform feature and not the top part. So right now, because this vertex alpha is black at the bottom and white at the top, only the top part is conforming, so I want to invert this mask, and that's really easy to do. Conform mesh mask, over here we have this remap slider, and I will invert it. And right now, if we move the mesh around, we will see that the branches are still conforming, so I need to remap this mask over here, so only the bottom part is conforming to the terrain. And what I will do over here, instead of using this lock position with conform, I will use freeform object position and move the lock this position. And if I move this mesh around, you will see that in this area the bark is quite stretched. So what I want to do, if I move it up, I can unstretch that, and we only have the roots, maybe something like this, and we only have the roots conforming to the ground. All right, so these are the conforming, rotation, and transfer features. And in the next video, I will show you how to blend objects with the terrain using the blanket shaders. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye bye.